What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Before I get started on the video and the rumor that came out today regarding Jim Harbaugh, let me start off by saying Joe Judge is still the head coach of the New York Giants. There's been rumblings that it could go either way. I still think it's incredibly possible and even potentially likely that Joe Judge will remain on for a third year with the New York Giants. A lot remains to be seen. There's been reports that have come out that John Mara may or may not be willing to move on from Judge, depending on the GMs that do come in and whether or not he can be talked off the ledge as to whether or not Joe Judge is the best guy to push forward with. I think it's undeniable, especially after the press conference that Judge had and how poorly the New York Giants have played, and the fact that he's had as bad of a record as he has, and the fact that in recent memory, John Mara has been influenced by the fan base. It is at least possible that the New York Giants could be looking for a new head coach. If you watch my channel, going all the way back to the coaching search in 2020, the first time around when they hired Joe Judge, the guy that people asked me about before I got the candidates that I want was always Jim Harbaugh. He's always been a guy that I've been very impressed with, going all the way back to his days with Stanford, then in the NFL with San Francisco. We'll get into all of his accomplishments. Of course, this year, he had a phenomenal year with the Michigan Wolverines. The one thing that really draws me to Jim Harbaugh, and there are definitely some deterrents that I'll get into in this video as well, that I certainly understand why some Giants fans wouldn't want him anywhere near the New York Giants facility. But the one thing that has always intrigued me with Jim Harbaugh, he's a former quarterback, and he's a guy that has gotten a lot out of quarterbacks, specifically Alex Smith. And I'll get into how well he turned around his career. He also was the guy that tutored Andrew Luck well in college with Stanford. And I'll talk about what Andrew Luck had to say about his former head coach as well, bringing him up through the Stanford ranks. But that is one thing that is definitely very intriguing. Well, he was with the 49ers. He also completely flipped that team around. We'll get into his career record, but before he got there, the team was 6-10 the year before. They had a career record. They had a record over the 8 previous seasons of 46-82. His career record while he was with the Niners was 44-19. He won 5 playoff games in the 4-year stretch, which was more playoff games than they had won in their 15 previous years combined. Got them to a Super Bowl appearance in which he lost to his brother. I'm sure you guys all remember the blackout Super Bowl game, but clearly was a guy, regardless of whether you want to talk about that they had talent or not, they got the most out of that talent. And that was a 49ers team that had a lot of similarities to this Giants team. Not to say our defense is near the level of that 49ers defense. That 49ers defense ranked 5th or better all 4 years while Harbaugh was there in yards against. They were middle of the league the year before, 16th. He got there. So there was a vast improvement on both sides of the ball. And as Giants fans, we really definitely remember just how good that defense was. And I'm sure Eli Manning could tell you that as well. One of the better defenses I've ever seen. That's how good that 2011 49ers defense was. They then went to the Super Bowl the next year with Colin Kaepernick at quarterback when they decided to move on from Alex Smith midseason. Then Smith went to the Kansas City Chiefs and continued to progress throughout his career. But Jim Harbaugh, to me, is a guy that with a proven track record that has definitely been successful in the NFL. And outside of his tutelage with quarterbacks, he's also proven to come into a destination that was going through a horrible phase. 49ers didn't have a winning season the 8 years before he got there. Of course, a very storied franchise, but the 8 years before he got there, they were horrible. He then flipped them around real quick. His first year there, they went 13-3. But let's jump into some of the things that I wanted to talk about with Jim Harbaugh. That's actually the wrong thing that I did not want to pull up first. Once in a while, I make mistakes. Here is the report that I saw initially from Bleacher Report. Jim Harbaugh might be tempted to leave Michigan and make an NFL return from Bruce Feldman of college football. This then coming out from The Athletic. And now The Athletic is hearing rumblings both from the NFL side and at Michigan that Harbaugh might be tempted to leave the Wolverines to return to the NFL. I think it's real, said one source this week when asked about the possibility of Harbaugh being interested in heading back to the NFL. Now, the two destinations I've heard the most about, which it's going to get into here, are the Raiders and the Bears. Harbaugh came up with the Bears as a player, as a quarterback. He also played for the Indianapolis Colts. But those were the two destinations that a lot of people talked about. Some people did bring the New York Giants into the discussion, but I think at this time we don't know whether or not they're going to move on from Joe Judge. Most people feel like the Raiders, due to the fact that they fired Gruden midseason and the fact that the Bears will more than likely be moving on from Nagy, are going to be destinations that he could potentially look to go to. But if the Giants were to move off of Joe Judge, maybe they could be a destination that Harbaugh would be interested in. Which of these 3 destinations would be the most attractive? Well, here's what this article had to say. The Raiders head coaching job might be tough for him to say no to, given the ties to the organization. He started his coaching career there in 2003, and the fact that there's already a solid quarterback in place in Derek Carr. He's also friends with the Raiders owner, Mark Davis. So there's certainly ties there with the Raiders. And like the article says, Derek Carr is at least an average starting quarterback in the NFL. Something that neither the Bears or the Giants quarterbacks have been able to prove at the pro level quite yet, whether it be Justin Fields or whether it be Daniel Jones. So maybe that would be the most attractive destination for Harbaugh. As far as the Bears go, the Bears don't have a first-round pick this year, and I would think they would want to stay committed to Justin Fields, a guy that they traded up a lot of draft capital to get. Whether or not Harbaugh would be interested in coaching Fields, who knows? With the Giants, I think he'd have free autonomy to either stick with Jones or potentially draft a quarterback. I don't think the New York Giants would prevent him from making a move if he felt like he needed an upgrade at the quarterback position. And of course, the Giants more than likely will have 2 picks inside the top 10 of this year's draft. So I think you could certainly argue the Giants may be a more attractive destination than that of the Chicago Bears. The Raiders probably the most attractive of the 3. This then is his resume. Started with the Oakland Raiders, like it said previously in the article, for 2 years as the quarterbacks coach, went to San Diego at the collegiate ranks as a head coach for 3 years, then went to Stanford where he coached Andrew Luck for 4 seasons from 2007 to 2010. Then he went to the 49ers where he really turned around that great franchise from 2011 to 2014, had a lot of issues with the front office that we're going to get into, then went back to the college ranks, and he's been with Michigan now for a long time. And people have talked about how he's kind of struggled at Michigan. Sometimes he doesn't rub people the right way, but this year it was undeniable. He had a great year at the collegiate ranks. This coming out from the AP Top 25. Breaking news, Michigan's Jim Harbaugh is the Associated Press's College Football Coach of the Year, finishing ahead of Cincinnati's Luke Fickell and others. Of course, Michigan this year went to the college playoffs. They finished 12-2, 12-1 in the regular season. And Jim Harbaugh went on to be credited as the best coach in college football, turning that program around. This was his record well at Michigan. He went 10-3 his first 2 years, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4. Last year, they only went 2-4, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of players held out due to the pandemic. And this year, 12-1 in the regular season, losing in the playoffs, finishing 12-2, by far his best year since he's been at Ann Arbor. So a great year this year for Harbaugh, and maybe he's looking at it like, okay, I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in college. Maybe now I want to try to go back to the NFL and win that Super Bowl that I just missed out on with the San Francisco 49ers. This is his career record, like I said. Harbaugh went 44-19 during a 4-year stretch as the head coach of the 49ers from 2011 to 2014. Harbaugh joined the 49ers following a successful stint at Stanford, where he went 29-21 as the head coach. In terms of the reason that he was fired, he had a lot of issues with upper management. There were also some rumors that he did not necessarily get along with the players and that he was starting to lose the locker room on the tail end of his tenure with the 49ers. I didn't pull up the Deion Sanders quote, but I know that Deion Sanders said that he talked to people from within inside the organization, the players, and said that things were kind of heated from within the locker room. But this came out from an article talking about why the 49ers ultimately decided to move on from Jim Harbaugh. Well, there are varied explanations for what exactly happened between the Niners and ex-coach Jim Harbaugh. Everyone agrees on one thing. This had nothing to do with football. How could it, with what he was able to produce there? The overwhelming consensus is that Harbaugh is leaving because of his relationship with the front office, specifically GM Trent Bulk and CEO Jed York. Fell apart to a point in which he couldn't work with them anymore. Tim Kawakami, I think it's pronounced, of the San Jose Mercury News reported that the only way Harbaugh would have saved his job was if he won a Super Bowl that year. This is how he described it. Neither man is in this to make friends, but Bulk is much smoother political player than you'd expect, and he has moved into total control of the 49ers operation as Harbaugh's relationship with York faltered. So there you go. I think Harbaugh felt like he was losing control of the football team. He decided to move on. We remember a lot of players retired as soon as Harbaugh decided to leave and ultimately end up with the Michigan Wolverines. I remember Patrick Willis retired along with a number of other 49ers. This coming out from Rappaport in regards to losing the locker room. Rappaport later tweeted that Harbaugh irked some veterans by taking the team to Baltimore for days to practice against his brother. And some Giants fans may read this as, is he being too hard preseason? A lot of people worry about that because Joe Judge, that was kind of the stigma with him. The Niners and Ravens played in week 1 of the preseason, August 8th, a 23-3 Baltimore win. They conducted 3 joint practices before the Niners returned to San Francisco. Then his brother went on to talk about what both teams were able to gain from it, but nothing regarding, him losing the locker room, so not really significant for this video. This then coming out from Andrew Luck. Like I said, Luck was the quarterback at Stanford while Harbaugh was the head coach. And I think this is important to hear what former quarterbacks have to say for the simple reason we still have a young quarterback on our roster with Daniel Jones and potentially a guy we may ultimately end up drafting to replace him. So I think that would be one of the most valuable things if we were to hire a guy like Harbaugh that he could bring to the table for the New York Giants. Luck, the first pick in the 2012 NFL draft, said he owes Harbaugh for helping him develop in every facet of the game. Competitive edge, how to play quarterback, and not just on the field stuff, but the off the field sort of work description in a sense that a quarterback has. Luck said, he's a heck of a coach. Then Luck went on to say this. He's a heck of a coach, Indianapolis Colts quarterback said in a teleconference with the Detroit reporters today. He's a winner. I know I learned a bunch from him. I feel like I grew as a player, as a man, a lot under him. Always happy for his success. As long as they're not playing Stanford in the Rose Bowl, then I have to root for Stanford regarding Michigan and Stanford, but just talking about how much of an influence that he had on him as a collegiate quarterback. So there you have it there with Harbaugh, and to me, that's one of the most attractive things about him. This I really wanted to look at was Alex Smith's career before Jim Harbaugh got there. Alex Smith played 5 years, really 6, but he sat out 1 year, I think, due to injury, but played 5 years as a starting quarterback for the Niners before Jim Harbaugh got there. He had an 18-31 career record as a starter. He had 51 touchdowns and 53 picks. So, kind of similar to Daniel Jones. Not that I'm comparing the two. Alex Smith is a fringe Hall of Fame quarterback. He won't be, but a very good quarterback. 3-time Pro Bowler with the Kansas City Chiefs and was in a very good situation once Harbaugh got there. So, like I said, 18-31 career record. He had 2 more career interceptions than touchdowns. In his first year with Jim Harbaugh, he went 13-3. He had 17 touchdowns and 5 picks and had the lowest interception percentage in the entire NFL. If you don't think Jim Harbaugh had some kind of influence in the improvement in Alex Smith's game, you're kidding yourself. And he had a lot to do with why that 49ers team grew as much as they did. He improved them by 7 wins his first year there. Was there some talent? Absolutely. But for a guy to step into a program that did not have a winning season the 8 years before he got there, to bring them to an NFC title game in which they easily could have beat us, you got to admit it, Giants fans, and then went on to go to the Super Bowl in which they easily could have won against his brother in the Baltimore Ravens in his second year, says a lot about Jim Harbaugh. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Niners advanced pretty far in the playoffs the following year as well. So Jim Harbaugh had a lot of success in a limited sample size of just 4 years with the 49ers. And the main reason why he was forced to move on is because he couldn't get along with upper management, which begs the question, is this a guy that John Mara would even be comfortable enough to bring in if it was even a possibility to be the head coach of the New York Giants? And if he was, you have to think, based off the prior track record, based off the fact that Harbaugh probably liked college a lot more because he had more say, Harbaugh would have to have a lot of say in terms of the personnel decisions with the New York Giants football team. Now, I don't really see that being an obstacle. Joe Judge, I think we all agree, has had a lot to say the last 2 years, and it seems like the New York Giants are an organization that works hand in hand with their head coach and their general manager. Whether or not that Harbaugh would require the general manager title, that I don't know, but there's no doubt about it. He would have to have a lot of say in the players that they bring in and the players that they release on this Giants football team. In my opinion, with where this New York Giants football team is, I think the risk's worth the reward. I do think Jim Harbaugh has proven in the past that he's been able to turn around franchises rather quickly. Do I think it would happen right away? No. But I do think he's one of the better candidates potentially out there that could get the New York Giants back on the right track. And maybe a pipe dream. We may not even be in the market to bring in a head coach. But when I hear that Jim Harbaugh is potentially interested in returning to the NFL and the New York Giants are on shaky ground, I'm interested. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.